Hey, it's Bill from the Bill Simmons podcast. FIFA World Cup 26 fans, listen up. As the official beer sponsor of the FIFA World Cup 26, Michelob Ultra is giving away $1 million worth of FIFA World Cup 26 tickets and prizes. Enter now at MichelobUltra.com/superior access/FIFA World Cup 26. Michelob Ultra FIFA World Cup 26 superior access. No purchase necessary. Open U.S. residents 21 plus begins on December 1st, 2025. Ends on July 31st, 2026. Multiple entry periods. Visit www.MichelobUltra.com/superior access/FIFA World Cup 26 for free entry deadlines, prizes, and details.
This summer, serve up the Cookout Classics, Oscar Mayer hot dogs and Heinz mustard. Grill up a dog, add classic yellow mustard, or loaded Chicago style. We all know it's not a cookout without Oscar Mayer and Heinz.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Tuned Into Tennis. I'm your host, Myles David, and today we have a show where we recap the 2025 Rome Masters, ATP and WTA. I think the official terminology for that tournament is the Internazionale BNL d'Italia. And I think that was actually a pretty good pronunciation of it, Miles. I'm clapping myself on the back, or giving myself a pat on the back. Either way, we talk all about Rome and what it means leading into Roland Garros. So if this is out-of-date tennis news as you're listening to it, hopefully you can just, tag along for the entertainment of it all. I actually spoke with James from the Tennis Unfiltered Podcast, which is a lovely podcast I listen to from time to time myself. James was nice enough to have me on his show, and I used that audio from our conversation for my episode, as well as two other snippets from some lovely tennis friends of mine, Bems and Miguel. I believe Miguel was up first, then Bems, and I actually asked them a very specific question pertaining to Rome and Jannik Sinner. So without further ado, you're going to hear all of that in good time, and hopefully you enjoy this episode. Leave a review. Make sure to follow Tuned Into Tennis on socials at Tuned Into Tennis, and I will catch you on the next episode.
Hello and welcome back to Tennis Unfiltered with me, James Gray of the iPaper. I've swapped out Calvin Betton and replaced him transatlantically with Myles David, who I'm delighted to have back on the podcast. I think 2 years and a couple of months since you were last on. Myles, host and producer of Tuned Into Tennis, which is also the social handle if you want to go follow Myles on social media, which I can recommend. Myles, tell me about where you are. It looks much warmer than where I am.
It is warm. Thanks, James, for having me. I'm a big fan of the pod and glad to be back doing some tennis sparring verbally back and forth. But yes, I am actually in the South. Normally I'm in Louisiana, close to New Orleans, but I'm actually in Houston as we speak for a friend's housewarming. So that's where I am currently. And the last time I checked the temperature in my car, it was 91 degrees Fahrenheit. And I'm sure it's only going to climb. So that's wonderful. Sarcasm.
I don't know what that is in Celsius for UK, but that sounds like a lot. It sounds hot. I think that's in the 30s, and I can empathize.
Yeah, as long as I have my SPF and a cold bottle of water, I guess I'll be able to manage.
Yeah, people who regularly listen to the podcast will know that I only have two prerequisites from places I stay at tournaments, and it's that it has air conditioning and that it has blackout blinds. I can live through anything with those two things.
Is air conditioning a little tough to come by in the season that we're currently in the European clay court swing?
Yeah, it's just, certainly in Paris specifically, it's not as widespread. I mean, in Britain, it's like in residential properties, it's pretty unheard of to have air conditioning. Most hotels will have it, but I stay in Airbnbs pretty much exclusively these days because it's cheaper, and it's like that filter is always ticked. Like it's just an absolute non-negotiable. So yeah, it is a little bit more hard to come by, but we're getting there. You know, global warming is really pushing people along in terms of modernizing their comfort.
Good old global warming. We love it.
If we have nothing to thank for it, then that alone. Right, well, as you've already heard me and Calvin talking about the ATP side and a few hilarious moments from Rome, Myles and I are going to have a look at some of the stuff on the women's side, more than not because Coco Gauff had a good week and a couple of other Americans starting to show some real form on the clay, so I thought it would be great to have Myles' input. But I suppose we have to start really in Italy with an Italian, because Jasmine Paolini is the Rome champion, ending a 40-year wait for a home winner of the Italian Open. She was already the first Italian finalist in 11 years, but then swatted Coco Gauff aside, much to the delight, of course, of the home fans. Myles, we will come on to Coco in a moment, but just a word on Jasmine Paolini. She's got a lot to defend in the months coming up, having made the final last summer at Roland Garros and Wimbledon. Just how important was it for her to create a little bit of a buffer with these 1,000 points?
Extremely important. I think it's important just not only numerically for where she stands in the WTA rankings, but also confidence coming into a large chunk of the season, like where you said points are on offer that she has to defend and kind of defend her reputation in a way, because I don't know if she would love to be known as this is a weird kind of tally of words, but the one season, 2-time finalist WTA player. I don't think anybody likes to be known as like kind of like one drop in the bucket. And so far this season, she's done enough, at least from my purview, to kind of show that she really has elevated her game. And it wasn't just this kind of run of events for a couple of weeks where she kind of found magic. Her game does suit different surfaces well, and she bothers opponents. And she showed that throughout the Italian Open with some added spice and kind of push forward from the fans. And she has equaled her best ever performance on the WTA Tour with another WTA 1000 victory. And I actually remember when she won her first WTA Tour title back in 2021 in Slovenia, a 250 tournament. And to see where she is now is quite something. So I'm proud of the player that she is coming along to be, and I'm sure she is too. So it's nice to kind of see all that coming positively for Jasmine Paolini.
Yeah, she's a funny player because her record against like top 10 opponents is actually not very good. Like she hasn't beaten a huge number of top 10 players. I'm just trying to pull it up on Tennis Abstract. That's right. 8 out of 28 matches she's won against top 10, 4 out of the last 11, which is okay. But I think what she does better than those ranked below her, and the reason, aside from those 2 slam finals, the reason she's been able to at least sort of maintain that I guess she's top 5 now ranking, is that she beats most people ranked below her. You know, the people that you think she should beat, she tends to come out and do it. I guess the thing now is whether, coming back to Roland Garros, where she did make the final last time, if she gets, and she's not going to get a bad draw because of her seeding will be quite high, but, you know, when it gets to the quarters and maybe she faces either Gauff again or Sabalenka, I think that's going to be the statement match for her, and that's going to be the moment where it's like, okay, now it's time for Jasmine Paolini, all 4'11" of her, or however tall she is, to stand up and say, I'm going to beat a really big player here.
I think she's laid the groundwork to give herself a chance, and more than a fighting chance, really, when she comes up against the players named Sabalenka and Gauff. I mean, she beat Gauff in the final. She's given Sabalenka all she could handle and actually beaten her on a pretty big stage in Indian Wells a few years back. So there's merit to kind of give to Jasmine Paolini to be more than just a disruptor and actually a champion, because she has the hardware now with a title in Dubai last year and now this Italian Open, plus some nice runner-up plates at home that she can kind of look back on. I think it's actually quite interesting that between, I think I looked this up, the 2021 and 2023 season, all of those slams combined, I believe she may have gotten 4 Grand Slam main draw wins. And then she pops up to the French Open last year and she equals that plus some, then does it again at Wimbledon. So this last like 12 plus month period for her has been outstanding comparatively to the rest of her career, which had kind of been, journeywoman-esque, kind of fighting for wins at a lower level. So I'm not quite sure what sparked the surge. But the surge is here, and I can't be mad at it, because she brings a certain effervescence and fun to the tennis court that I think a lot of people can relate to and just kind of like to see. So, It's cool.
And she may just have sort of absorbed a bit of a fan base because she recruited Mark Lopez in April to coach breaking up with parting ways with Renzo Furlan, who'd worked with her for a long time. He, of course, was for a long time Rafa Nadal's hitter and coach to a certain extent as well. So, Jasmine Paolini's sort of the wild card of the bunch for me when I look at the top 20 in the women's game, and I look at the contenders and I go like, I sort of see why this person's here and why this person's here, and there's like Jasmine Paolini, and kind of like you said, Myles, like she had this amazing 12 months and will desperately not want to be remembered as the person who had that amazing year and won a load of doubles and singles titles and then just poof, vanished from the face of the earth. And I guess this is now the anniversary. This is the point at which everything she does from now forward is like second season syndrome or not. This is where she backs it up and runs it back for me. But you mentioned that this win over Coco Gauff in Rome. She has beaten Coco Gauff before quite recently, right? She beat her in Stuttgart, I want to say, and has a pretty good head-to-head. So, 6-4, 6-2 in the final shouldn't have been that big a surprise, I suppose. But nevertheless, Coco Gauff will come away from this and probably think that was a pretty good week to have before the French, right?
I think the last 4 weeks, when you think about the fact that these 2-week Masters are now stretched over, more than 12 days or so, I think she has a lot of positive to look back over the past month. Coco Gauff does, because before this month, we were looking at early losses or less than stellar losses at the Indian Wells and Miami tournaments. And then you just said the Stuttgart tournament where she lost to Jasmine Paolini. All of the losses in those weeks were a little concerning, not necessarily because of the losses, but the way that she played in them. It was less than what a top 5 player you would want to see from a top 5 player. So for her to string together really, really strong weeks, come up short in the final to either a player that is playing at the best of their capability in Aryna Sabalenka or playing heavily inspired like Jasmine Paolini was in the final. I think it's not too much to hang her head about. And I think she's made some commentary or some statements in press about kind of like finding the positives in what is a positive week. So I think she comes away maybe thinking that these are moments that she needs to kind of find her best tennis and kind of maybe moments that kind of got away from her or she was tired. But ultimately that might prove her well at the French Open because it kind of gives her more ammunition and maybe some more fire under the belly to kind of actually get her hands on the winner's trophy because she's tasted a runner-up trophy a little bit too often.
Yeah, and she doesn't like it. And we shouldn't forget Roland Garros as a venue, the Olympics last year, and everything that happened when she lost to, she lost to Donna Vekic, right? But I mean, I felt more like she lost to herself because, she got into an argument with the umpire about an overrule that she then claimed, it was a call that had put her off a shot, and Vekic got the point, and she ended up in tears on the court, and it was a kind of rare moment. I think we all think of Coco Gauff as this like incredibly she's 21 years old. It's insane the adult that she is for someone of her age. And so I remember being there on that day because I was at the Olympics and I was trying to avoid the tennis, but I ended up there. And I was like, this is so weird. It's weird seeing Coco Gauff. She's had run-ins with umpires, but to see her lose her composure in that way. And it kind of got me thinking, and everything that's gone on since, I was just looking at it just now. She's won 53 matches in the last 12 months, which is quite a lot, given that she's played 70 singles matches. But she's not won very many at Grand Slams. She made semis of the French last year. She made quarters of the Australian Open. She didn't play well at the US Open. Okay, she ran into Emma Navarro. But, there's not a lot of wins at big tournaments there. There's a lot of other wins. I'm not going to start questioning her bottle because I don't think that's fair or accurate. But, it is starting to form a pattern. 12 months is not far off a pattern, Myles. And I wonder if this is quite a big tournament for her to even just say to herself, right, let's stop winning 250s and start winning biggies again.
Yeah, I mean, she's not that far away from her last 1,000 title, which she won in Beijing, and then also the WTA Finals, which is about 6 months ago now. So I feel like there's still quite a high level in her, a very high level. But I do see the point of she's a Grand Slam champion. And by the time the U.S. Open rolls around this summer going into the fall, it'll be 2 years since then. So I think it's right about the time now that people start to kind of put that question in their head. Can she do it again? Will she do it again? And we all know that she wants to do it again. It's just a matter of putting herself in that position and ultimately coming up with the W. And I think this French Open, especially with the way the seedings are going based off of, this run to form and Iga Swiatek dropping down in the rankings, I think hypothetically it does give her an easier road, or maybe a more comfortable road, to kind of get herself into the Final Four again of Roland Garros, which I believe is where she is. I mean, going into the French Open, she's certainly in my top 5 of people that I would not be surprised at all to be lifting that trophy at the end of the 2 weeks. So around the semifinals, definitely the second week is where she should be. So if her game is rounding into form like it looks like it is, it should be there. But I do see your point that Grand Slam victories is where Grand Slam draws is where she kind of needs to assert herself. In the last couple of outings she's had, especially the losses, have just not looked very great. They haven't been competitively wonderful. They've kind of been all over the place, featuring double faults and, of course, the forehand frenzy that is Coco Gauff's forehand sometimes. But hopefully the clay has shown already in the past four weeks that it does give her time to kind of sort that out, even if it is struggling. So hopefully we see that more on display in Paris.
I wonder, you're absolutely right to point out the WTA finals and the thousands, but and it may be different in the States, but certainly for UK fans, if she was British, the currency, and, take Emma Raducanu, although she's not won other titles, so it doesn't translate, but, the currency is Grand Slam victories. And, they're the ones that people go, well, oh, yeah, she won the US Open. What else has she won? It would be interesting to know from your perspective, when you talk to friends who maybe aren't tennis fans but are sports fans, or, do they sort of see, oh, there's Myles, he's really into tennis. What's Coco Gauff done since winning the US Open? What's happened to it? Is that kind of the way, or are people a bit more engaged?
When I just have kind of elevator conversations about tennis, Coco Gauff comes up quite often, whether the person knows I'm into tennis or not. And they keep a pretty good pulse in the States about what she's doing. I mean, even to the point where I'm actually surprised where Americans are keeping up with what she's been doing in the European clay swing. They're fully aware. And I think that translates to what her cut through is. I believe a lot of people were inspired by her U.S. Open victory and have, tried to get on the train of seeing her surge to another Grand Slam victory. So I think people just feel like they're along for the ride for Coco Gauff. So the 1000s and the WTA finals and the wins that she picks up along the way kind of feel like they're a part of a story arc that's building to Coco Gauff becoming a 2-time Grand Slam champion, because we know she can do it. We just kind of want to make sure she gets out of the category of a one slam wonder, which it's better to have one than not have one. But, some great people have only one. And I think Coco Gauff, she said it herself, she wants to be out of that club. So I think people are just pushing her forward and keeping up with the journey that is Coco Gauff and Grand Slam number 2.
Better to have loved and to have lost than never to have loved at all, I believe is the original quote. But yeah, something like that. It's interesting. I mean, I think this is something we talk about an awful lot on the pod, as the difference between the way tennis is presented in the States, the UK. We have loads of American listeners, I know, so this is old news to you guys at home. But, I think the Tennis Channel, for example, is it's just a product. I know Tennis Channel International exists, but it's not particularly ubiquitous in the UK, and I don't imagine there are loads of UK subscribers, so it doesn't have that same kind of Sky do try, but it's really hard to present tennis in a compelling way on a year-round basis, and I really
it's
admire.
Yeah.
Exactly, and I have the Tennis Channel podcast downloading into my phone, and it's great. Just that it's only 15 minutes some days, and it's so good just to get that classic sort of Sports Center style, na 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 na, the little roundup thing, and it just doesn't. I don't know what it is. There's something about tennis's image in the UK which doesn't lend itself to it. But I'm glad people are more switched on. And who knows? One day maybe I'll just broadcast exclusively to the American audience, and we can get all really nerdy about it. But since we broadcast to a British audience as well, we are legally obligated to talk about Emma Raducanu for at least 5 minutes every week. And Myles, you'll already have seen I've written that on our order of play. And it's an easy segue because she, of course, was beaten in Rome by Coco Gauff, but not before picking up some pretty valuable wins. Any wins for a British player on the dangerous red dirt are very, very valuable indeed. So we don't turn our noses up at them, especially with the French Open only a couple of weeks away. She beat Maya Joint, the Australian, allegedly Australian, she's American really, teenager, Jill Teichmann, and then Veronika Kudermetova as well, before losing quite comprehensively to Coco Gauff. You kind of look at it in the context, Myles, and go, well, Gauff made a final. She's a very good player. Emma Raducanu's ranked 49 in the world. That's kind of what you'd expect. But there's this kind of British exceptionalism, I'm afraid, where we look at it and go, you should be beating everyone. You're British. You're better than this. But I was kind of intrigued by what she said afterwards, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on it, where she said, I just know that every day I'm trying to be the best version of myself. I'm trying to win the day, and I'm trying to get back to that. I didn't win the match on the court today, but I'm going to find a way to win the day still today. I wonder if that's like a coping mechanism against what has been a very tough couple of months for Emma Raducanu. And maybe just a coping mechanism for tennis players. If you're governed by results, you're going to lose most weeks.
Yeah, you are. And I honestly think, from my perspective, it's a pretty healthy quote and mindset that I think she's in, because make no two ways about it, I think the run of years and form that she's had since that U.S. Open run, and I'm sure I would imagine that she's happy she won it, but I can imagine the narrative being that she hasn't been able to get back to that level and kind of like moment in her career is kind of tiring at this point, because we're about 4 or 5 years on since that splash that she made, more than a splash, actually. I think it's great to see her win 3 matches in a row, because that is not necessarily something that she's been able to consistently do on the WTA tour. And she's kind of is working backwards. Like, she's done the big thing, which is win a Grand Slam. And now she has to do the slightly monotonous thing, which is just put together match wins, so that when she's up against players like Coco Gauff or Iga Swiatek or Aryna Sabalenka, it doesn't feel necessarily overwhelming. And I do think that she played very less than what she would like to play against Coco Gauff, but that kind of shows that Coco Gauff has the rhythm underneath her of playing high caliber players week in, week out, whereas Raducanu is just kind of starting to get that underneath her belt. There are weeks where she doesn't play, and there are weeks where she does. So the weeks where she does play, it's nice to see her kind of play up to where her level is. I watched a very good amount of that match against Coco Gauff, and like I said, her level was not where it would have been to kind of make that more competitive, but I still saw flashes of the aggressive and great timing that she can put together on her ground strokes. So I think something is there. It's not all lost at all with Raducanu, and I think she does actually like moving about on the red clay. So I'm actually interested to see what she does, because she comes into Roland Garros. She won't be seeded, so we don't know where she'll fall, but I believe you said her ranking is in the 40s. That's, all things considered, from my perspective, that is not bad at all for a player who's kind of just been sort of finding herself after being thrust into the spotlight, and so much is expected of her, and all of the things that go around being a U.S. Open champion, the way that she specifically did it. It might sound very elementary, but winning 3 matches to get to the Coco Gauff round, I think that does a lot way more good than bad, obviously. The more you win, the more you get used to winning, and I feel like that's where she is in her career.
Myles, your sensibility is welcomed on this podcast, and listeners will be going, "No, we want more outrageousness, please." But I can't make him think differently, boys and girls. He's just a smart guy, and I do agree with you. Like, she is still on this learning curve, and we're so impatient. Like, well, you know, Brits especially. I think there's something about it. Maybe it's our fault, the media, but. Yeah, you know, she is still young, and like you said, she's backfilling her career, basically.
Yeah, I mean, she set such a high and unattainable bar. I mean, coming from a lot of people in the world, not even me, as much as I watch tennis, was not really familiar with Emma Raducanu's game, to have that huge moment in 2021. And kind of people are so quick to, like you said, be like, well, of course, you did this once, let's do it again. And tennis is, especially in the women's game, is tough. Everybody from 1 to 100 and even further on the day can really battle it out. And she's experiencing that. And I think along with the injuries that she's had, of course, injuries plus some inconsistencies in coaching, you kind of get what you've seen over the last 4 years. So I think right now, hopefully knock on wood, she's had about as much consistency in her game and the things around her all together working for her good. So I don't know, that might set her up for a good Roland Garros and beyond going into Wimbledon. So
yeah, exactly, because it's all just a precursor to the grass court season, as you well know.
Yeah, that's
Myles.
what we like. Yeah,
this isn't a real time of year, but anyway. Well, before I let you go and see everything that Houston has to offer, we go from the world number 49 to the woman who was the world number 42 at the beginning of last week, Peyton Stearns, which is a name that has been thrown around once or twice on this pod in previous months. She has picked up a few interesting results, and she picked up some really good results in Rome. A run where she beat Kalinskaya, Keys, Osaka, and Svitolina. 3 of those in deciding tiebreaks, 3 in a row. I believe she's the first person to do that on tour in about 15 years or something ridiculous, until she was beaten by the irrepressible Jasmine Paolini. She's working with Tom Hill now, I believe, if that's right. Mm-hmm. Or has she just broken? Yeah, that's right. I was like, Tom Hill broke up with someone.
I believe she broke up with Tom Hill because Tom Hill is now back with Sakari. That was
you're right.
I believe that was the jumping off point for why she played such inspired tennis.
and I think I'm also right in saying that Tom Hill, and you don't usually get this, Tom Hill was like, I have chosen to quit this. Like, you usually get players come out and say, oh, we've split. And he said, I've got his Insta in front of me here. After a great 12 months together, I've made the decision to end my coaching partnership with Peyton. I'm proud of everything. I'm grateful. You're not just an amazing player, a truly wonderful person who I'm lucky to call a friend. So it doesn't sound like there's any animosity there, but Myles is making a face, and that skepticism must be due. But then to go out and beat like 3 of the better players around in a row, there's something going on here.
Yeah, I would actually challenge the notion that there's some amicability to that breakup, because from what I've understood, Tom made that announcement before he had actually consulted with Peyton Stearns. So I believe Peyton found out with kind of the rest of the social media network that she was going to need a new coach. And she put that out on Twitter as a joke, like, hey guys, I guess I need a new coach. So I believe there was some static between how that relationship ended. And I believe that's kind of why we got a fire under her skirt, kind of Peyton Stearns. And more power to her, because I watched a good bit of her in Rome, and those 3 wins in a row against Keys, Osaka, and Svitolina, as much as they were unlikely, she did some great clay court balling. I mean, the kind of rallies that she was able to sustain against Osaka and Svitolina, Osaka, who hits with so much pace, and Svitolina, who's known for being consistent, for her to get those victories, especially in the way that she did, with cramping and not feeling her best and still being able to showcase her game, I was left quite impressed. I'm not sure I'm impressed to the point that I see her as like a future 1000 champion or something of that nature, but I don't see why she can't find herself in the second week of a major. Now that her ranking is, I believe, upwards of 30, I think she will be seeded at Roland Garros. So technically she should be in the 3rd round by seeding. So as much as I was impressed with her week, I'm not sure where she is going to ultimately fall in the landscape of women's tennis, but it's nice to have another feisty American, I guess, if you will, in the mix than challenging the best. And that's way more than I bet she would have expected going into Rome. So kudos to her.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, you mentioned the feistiness. We're big Danielle Collins fans on this podcast, so adding Peyton Stearns to the Danielle Collins club is fine by me. I mean, she's interesting, really, because she's one of these. I mean, there's an absolute factory line of female talent in America. I think there's like 30 inside the top 200. It's completely insane.
There's quite a bit.
But she's someone who I think maybe came up on the rail a bit more than others. Like, I don't remember Peyton Stearns' name being thrown around much. You know, she didn't play juniors much. She obviously went to college. She went to UT, and maybe that's helped her, because it means she's got this kind of, like, you will know better than me, Myles, but to play college tennis at a high level, like, you've got to be pretty thick-skinned, right?
You got to be able to zone out a lot of distractions. Obviously, the distraction of like balancing a course curriculum and being an athlete of such a high standard. And then when you're actually in competition mode, there's a lot of stuff going around you. There isn't like this wonderful coliseum around her in Rome that's kind of exclusively focused on her. There's like 17 other matches that people are cheering for and cheering against you, throwing tomatoes, either figuratively or literally. So you kind of have to build yourself up brick by brick in college tennis. And I think a lot of that kind of translates well over to the professional WTA tour. So I think that's what we're seeing from Peyton Stearns, is just kind of like what you said, thick-skinned, willing to kind of lay it all out there because it means so much to her. For every win that she picks up means probably double more than it would to a player that's been, playing juniors with these peers for so long. It means a lot to her. You see that when she wins. And I think that kind of mentality, brick by brick, it means a lot to me, and I'm willing to lay it out on the line, is going to bring her a pretty darn good career. I think she's the defending champion in Rabat, which is being played this week. I don't think she's going back there. So she knows what it feels like to win a WTA 250. So plus a semifinal at a 1,000. Hey, I mean, she might be well on her way to making some serious damage. Who knows?
You wouldn't want to draw her in the first or second round at Roland Garros, like on a dirty outside court, out on one of like court 3 or something. Like I don't think you'd fancy that. That's
I would
that's
not be a fan.
Playing one of the French favourites. Look, before I let you go, Myles, I just wanted to mention one other thing because it came on my radar this weekend when I was watching the football. Serena Williams' husband, or as he prefers to be known, Reddit founder Alexis Ohanian, has taken an investment out in the Chelsea women's football team, which is exactly how it came to be that Serena Williams' daughter was shaking the hands of the winning Chelsea players in the Royal Box at Wembley on Sunday, which was just not something I had on my bingo card for this summer, to be honest. But does Serena's kind of flame of fame mean that a story like this, which if it wasn't her would get nowhere near, in the US, does that mean that that's now actually getting some attention in the States?
I think there is some cut through in the States. Unfortunately, maybe not as cut through in Miles's life, because unfortunately I haven't been on the football kick as much. But shout out to Alexis Ohanian. He actually follows me on Twitter or X, whichever one you want to call it. So we've had some cool interactions. He's a cool guy, and I love that he champions not only Serena, his wife, and obviously the kids, the beautiful kids that they've created. He champions women's sports, and I think that's huge. I don't think that it's just not lost on me that a man of his influence and the resources that he has and the connections that he has is choosing to kind of pour into more women's sports. And I think that is wonderful because women's sports are just as entertaining, if not more so, than men's sports. And for so many years, we've kind of been peddled the opposite narrative of that. So him doing the things that he can do within his power to help shift that narrative is A-okay by me. So if that means Chelsea football is better for it, then go Chelsea football.
Agreed. I mean, I'm not a Chelsea fan, so I can't get too excited about it, but some things are just good for the common good. That said, anything that involves me Googling Alexis Ohanian and then getting those awful beach pictures where he might... I mean, he's very welcome in Britain because he is the palest man in history. Like, I don't think he's taken his shirt off in the sun more than twice in the last 30 years. It's really bad.
He's not lacking in confidence, and I could take a note or two from that. I mean, if he's confident in what he's rocking, as he should be, then we all should be. And if Serena likes it, then I love it. That's all that matters.
You're quite right, Myles. Quite right. Well, on that note, I have to say goodbye to you, Myles. Thank you so much for filling in with George on holiday. Thank you really a lot for listening at home as well. Of course, do leave us ratings and reviews wherever you get your podcasts. And most importantly, just come back next time.
So in this part of the episode, where I alluded at the very beginning about speaking to two of my dear tennis friends, I don't know if I met them on Clubhouse, but social media and our love for tennis has definitely been a connecting point for the two voices that you're about to hear. Firstly, from Miquel and then Bems. Bems actually has her own podcast, and both of these names have been on the show before. So there's that. And yeah, I asked them specifically, do they think, because they are kind of on different spectrums or different ends of the spectrum when it comes to being a fan of Jannik Sinner. Miguel is not so much a fan, and definitely not so much of a fan after the Clostebol performance-enhancing drug incident. And then Bems was a fan and is still closer of a fan before and after the performance-enhancing drug saga. But I asked them, being that he was coming back from his 3-month suspension in Rome, would it look different if he was from a different country or looked different as far as the reception he received from the crowd? Because in general, I do feel like the average sports fan doesn't love an athlete that comes back from a drug suspension, and that I might be off base with that, but that's how it feels. That's how the stories have typically gone in other sports. But for whatever reason, in Jannik Sinner's case, he was met with a lot more love and adoration, and kind of like we're finally happy to see you back after 3 short months. So I asked Bems and Miguel about those two things, and you can hear from them yourself.
All right. So, Rome 2025, over to the men's side. No Novak, because of course he's trying to gear up for he's trying to get it together for Roland Garros. And so we didn't get to see him. Actually, wait. I could be wrong. I think I am wrong. But yeah, so if I'm wrong, cut this part out, Myles. But anyway, as far as the men's side goes, we have come a long way from the crash out that many of us had when Carlos lost to David Goffin at Miami, even though I kind of said that was the kind of match that Carlos will lose, and he proceeded to go out there and play like a donkey. So, but it was good to see him get back to get to 2 finals right before Roland Garros, which is, this is his time of year. Well, for the most part, it's always Carlos's time of year, but this was his biggest test, I would say, as far as opponent, because this is Jannik coming back from his 3-month suspension, no matter how you feel about how long he should have been suspended. But this is Carlos coming back, or this is Jannik coming back, and he plowed through the draw. So it looked like Carlos potentially was just going to be another victim. But he actually had that match at hand for the most part. That first set was tight, but once he got that first set and that tie break, that hard-fought tie break, I'll say, it was pretty much Carlos the rest of the way. So once again, as I said with Coco and Jasmine, hopefully that is momentum that they can carry out, not just for the rest of the play season, but for the rest of the year. Now, with Jannik, cool to see him back. And, he's back in front of his home country. So, of course, they were going to be out there in mass, kind of like Fonseca had the whole country of Brazil out there in Miami. And I don't know how the reception would have been had it been. I don't know. I don't think if Jannik was a top 3 player in the world, the reception would have been different. I don't think. I'm still trying to figure out why the reception has been different for him and Iga, because it just feels like, oh, well, they got caught and let's just move on. When typically it's different. And especially when you line it up next to, I mean, the most recent situation was Max Purcell's, and he has a 18-month ban. So I'm pretty sure if Max Purcell said, I'm coming back at Australia, or, if he decides I'm coming back at Melbourne, I don't know if he'll be received. Well, of course, he's Max Purcell. That's why. But even if Max Purcell, let's say it was Nick Kyrgios and he was top three player in the world, or Jordan Thompson, or anybody, or Arthur Fils coming back to Paris after a drug ban, I don't think the reception would be the same. I really don't. I think, from some of the countrymen, but I don't think there would be as much fanfare. I don't think there would be. It felt like Yannick is being celebrated for coming back. It kind of feels like he's a martyr. And honestly, I think Iga kind of got that reception too, but she didn't get to go play her first match back, or her first tournament back in front of her home crowd. So that remains to be seen. But it feels like Yannick is being welcomed back. It feels like it kind of feels like they've treated him like he's been a victim, and he's getting his just due now. And I don't know if I feel easy about that. So I don't know. He lost. So that's what matters most.
So in terms of Rome, ATP specific, it's shocking to me, even as a Jannik Sinner fan, that he was able to come back after that extended time off and make it to the final. He didn't even have that much of a cake draw. Do you know what I mean? I feel like he kind of sent a message to the tour, but unfortunately Carlos sent a louder message with how he demolished him in that final. I feel like ultimately I like Rome just because it's right before RG. You get a good sense of where people are at. I think the clay is more similar to RG as well. And I love how into it the Italian fans are. I think it's really cool that they've cultivated such a tennis culture nationally. I feel like Jannik Sinner being the most famous sports person in their country, when they have entire football teams, which in Europe mostly football takes precedent over everything else, I think is really cool. But yeah, I was a bit surprised by how Carlos was able to just kind of lock in and focus. I think he really means it when he says that he needs Jannik on tour, right? And Jannik makes him better. I think he finally had his little rival back and wanted to ensure that he rose to that level to be able to face him in the final and beat him in the final. So I thought that was cool. Did anything else stand out to me about Rome? I was honestly really embarrassed with the way Arthur Fils capitulated against Zverev. I actually really expected him to put up a better fight than that. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to do that. And so I'm wondering if that performance so close to Roland Garros, where everyone is kind of expecting him to show up as a Frenchman finally beating the Roland Garros curse. I'm interested to see how that plays out with him. I also have to say that I'm definitely side-eyeing the ATP for, I already mentioned, Jannik being able to come back so quickly, but also Hurkacz making it all the way to the semis, the quarterfinals? Yeah, quarterfinals. That was very ridiculous. He's not supposed to be there. He literally has been injured for months since Indian Wells or something insane. He's not even really been playing, and y'all let him all the way through to the quarterfinals. Really bad. I didn't like that at all. Obviously, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about Tommy Paul's repossession issues with his truck. And his truck being repossessed being what drove him to match his best result again this year to make it to the semifinals in Rome. That is a conversation in and of itself altogether. But like, I really, really hope that this is him like soft launching an auto pay service that he's an influencer for, because I just can't imagine that he actually got his truck repossessed. That is definitely a highlight from Rome that I have to mention. I liked what I saw from Lorenzo Musetti. I love the kid on him. I actually liked the haircut at first. I was like not really feeling it. But I loved his performances. I liked the grit that he showed. I really loved his performance against Zverev. He did so well to kind of just like lock in. I think he's beaten Zverev now, like every time they've played, except for the one time he retired, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously Zverev had excuses afterwards, which he like literally always does. He never is just like, oh yeah, I played a shit match. Well, actually, I guess that one time at the Australian Open, he was like, he's just not good enough, which is like the only time he's ever told the truth, because you're not. And so I think I was just happy to see him A, lose, and B, see Lorenzo do it so well. Like, that was really nice to see. Obviously, Yannick meeting the Pope didn't help him as much as, you know, it should have. Maybe he needs to go back for like a top up of like the holy water or whatever. But in thinking about whether or not Yannick would be received nicely if he had a different background or a different nationality, I would say that like the fans definitely aren't really feeling it. Like, I think it hasn't really gone down well for a lot of people. The secrecy, quote unquote, around it, and the length of the ban and the negotiating of the ban and all that stuff. I'm not sure they would like it any better if it was someone else. Like, I can't think of anyone on tour that it would be like, oh yeah, that's cool. Like, obviously, da-da-da. I think Yannick is probably best case scenario. But I think that if it was another player, it would have been much worse. I can definitely say that. Like, I don't know if Tiafoe... but let me say this. I also recognize that Yannick's case is particularly brow-raising because of how his game improved over a period, right? Like, I think that he has been doing well. He has been, ever since he, like, threw up in that trash can, right? He, like, his game improved. His physique improved. His stamina improved. So it's kind of just like, oh, so were you doping? Is that how you got this done? So that, like, it raises brows. I will say that, but I will also say that, like, people have been crucified for less. And I don't know if it was because the ATP did a lot to kind of, like, cushion him as, like, the world number one, because nobody ever wants the world number one to, like, be a quote-unquote doper. So they kind of, like, massaged the way the story came out and stuff like that, and that sort of, like, cushioned the blow. And maybe, like, cautioned players to still be nice or whatever the case may be. I'm not really sure. But I will say that, like, if Arthur Fils or if... I would even say, like, someone like Jensen Brooksby. Well, I mean, obviously he had that, like, thing. Like, I just feel like there's other players that have had issues and it didn't go over that well. And I will say that there's players that if they even dare to sniff an issue, it would be really bad as well.
All right, folks, there you have it. That was Miquel, then Bems. I forgot to actually say what order they went in, but the first voice you heard was Miquel, and then the second voice you heard was Bems, and I appreciated both of their contributions to this podcast. And I am trying to teeter in between the line of traditionally not liking this clay court season, and in particular Roland Garros, and just being a little bit thrilled for it. And I'm trying to unpack where that the relation is coming from. But in order to help me unpack that and to kind of go through that, you actually need to listen to the next episode, because that's where we'll be doing our 2025 Roland Garros prediction and draw review show. So If you're listening on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, before you go to the next episode, please leave a review, rate the show, and like I always say, follow on social media if you haven't already at Tuned Into Tennis. It's been great talking to you guys, and I will see you guys on the next episode. Take care.